In case it wasn't clear, Haymitch is really not okay right now. Spoiler warning for Sunrise on the Reaping. It's the wee hours of the fourth day in the arena, and the volcanic snow-capped mountain is erupting. He almost falls out of the tree he's in, but regains his grip, and he's struggling to cope with the toxic ash in the air. He speculates about the nature of the volcano since it's manufactured by game makers, wondering if it has natural lava that sets things on fire, and if the water tank he blew up was meant to put out those fires. If so, he feels very guilty to have destroyed any hope for those who survived the eruption. Eventually, Haymitch climbs all the way down the tree, huddling on pine needles beneath it, and he fully puts his head inside his shirt, feeling hopeless and resigned. Thinking he's a lowly district kid with a big ego and his attempt to stop the games was pathetic. His bat scratch wounds burn and bleed, tear-soaked, blood-soaked, misery-soaked. I lay on my side and curl myself around the base of the tree trunk. He starts pounding his head into the tree until he bleeds and then goes limp, waiting to die. He lays there in a haze, his head tucked inside his shirt for hours until the night is over. The ground has been humming ever since the arena force field came back to life, and Haymitch figures this is the hum of the arena's backup generator Beatty told him about. Then Haymitch thinks of Mags's goal to protect her district partner during her games, and he thinks about Maisley and the remaining newcomers who could use a hand. He resolves not to give up and see if he can't be of some tiny use to someone else. And with that decided, he comes out of his shirt hidey hole and sees the volcanic ash is clear and sparkling, so that everything seems to be coated in a layer of rock candy, like everything is preserved in ice. Anyways, Haymitch eats his final hard-boiled egg as a little sandwich. I'm glad we're done with those eggs. They gross me out, I'm sorry. Haymitch starts getting his things together, retrieving his hammock from the area Ampert died in, and his skeleton is gone. But he's able to find Ampert's axe and puts it in his belt so he can carry mementos of his allies with him. He also still has that spare explosive sunflower token. The idea of trying to escape the arena and try to break the generator takes shape in his head. And though it's a long shot, the truth is, what does Haymitch have to lose? Nothing, according to him. So Haymitch starts working out how he could do this with a knife, an axe, and a dream. He's thinking WWBD. What would BD do? And that would be to get to the generator, which is at the top of the arena. He needs to keep going north to the arena wall, which could be made of cement or metal or some kind of force field for all he knows. A couple miles into his hike, it starts to rain, and the water is fresh, so he tries to collect some in his water jugs. The Catching Fire Games recap also mentioned the rainwater being safe to drink. The crystal ash dissolves in water, so after half an hour of rain, the forest is as fresh and pristine as the morning he entered it. When Haymitch reaches the end of the forest, there's a tall hedge that comes to a point like a V and stretches as far as the eye can see in both directions. On closer inspection, the plants appear to be some kind of holly, loaded with clusters of red berries and sporting prickly green leaves. And the berries have little black dots on their skins. There's a little opening in the hedge, and Haymitch squeezes in, finding a narrow path going about 10 feet in, then curves farther into the hedge, which appears to be quite deep. He follows this hedge maze path, becoming hopelessly lost, and starts to panic. It's bad. He's stuck in this spiky holiday hallucination for hours, sweating profusely, fearing mutts will appear and he'll die so very foolishly. Eventually, he falls to his knees and weighs his options. Give up, continue to bumble around, or try to hack his way through the hedge with the axe. The last seems to have the most potential, but there's something almost sinister about the hedge that stays his hand. He decides to go for it anyway, but right when he gets up and reaches for the axe, one of those dove gray rabbits hop over. It darts away, Haymitch follows it, and in a couple minutes, he's out of the maze and back in the forest. Yay! But then, a sword blade whistles by his head, just catching the tip of his ear. It's the careers! Haymitch falls backward over a branch, so he's on the ground. A District 4 girl lunges at Haymitch with a trident. He deflects it and stabs her in the gut with his knife. Then he slices the hamstring of a District 4 boy. The line is, I encounter a leg and hamstring it, leaving her district partner writhing on the ground. Ew. Haymitch brings down the axe on the District 4 guy, cutting his neck open with a single adrenaline-fueled blow, and then faces Panache from 1, who wields a sword and shield. The boys circle each other. Haymitch is scared and thinks about running away before Panache knocks the axe out of his hand, cutting him with the sword. Then he slams him with the shield and Haymitch drops the knife. He thinks, I back away, hands lifted with only my words to defend me. I'm just gonna read what he says. I love this dialogue. Whoa, 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 whoa. Panache, think about this. Looks bad killing an unarmed man, especially me being from 12 and all. I mean, I got a 1 in training. Think about your image. You don't want to do something stupid. Calling back to how Caesar roasted Panache at his interview. And Panache is listening. Haymitch keeps talking. Listen, I know you're not a meathead. That chariot idea was brilliant. Sorry I swiped it. But you need to play this smart, am I right? Else it could affect your sponsor gifts. How you making out with those anyway? Me, I've been doing pretty well. Turns out some people love a loser, but everybody knows you're going to win. You always win. Come on, at least slide my knife over here so we can give the people a show. Panache isn't convinced, arguing they already fought and Haymitch lost. Panache draws back his sword, looking at Haymitch's throat. I brace myself for the blow, trying to look brave and defiant and proud, staring him down so hard he has to admit that even if he kills me, he hasn't defeated me. In my last moment, I need to see recognition of that. What I see instead is the surprise that transforms his face as the dart pierces his throat. He collapsed, dead. Maisily walks out into the open, holding a blowgun she attached to a makeshift necklace, and flatly states, "We'd live longer with the 2 of us." Bam. Haymitch and Maisily agree to be allies, though she threatens him a little, saying she has a dozen poison darts left if Haymitch is still feeling exclusive. There's 3 cannon booms confirming the deaths of Panache, Barba, and Angler. A hovercraft picks up the 3 bodies, and Maisily and Haymitch stop to tend to his wounds. Maisily takes charge here. She has a first aid kit she got from a dead career, and she's pretty beat up herself at this point. There's burns on her arm, along with Drusilla's riding crop welts, and a range of cuts and bruises. She tells Haymitch that the lava from the volcano wasn't actually hot. It was some sort of gel that gave you chemical burns if it got under your clothes, then turned hard and slippery as ice on the ground. Haymitch and Maisily assess their food supplies, and like the queen she is, Maisily had fashioned a fork out of wire. As a sweet surprise, he tells her to close her eyes while he takes out the goblet and fills it with the remaining grape juice. Haymitch wants to give it to her as a thank you for saving him, but Maisily insists they split it and all the food 50-50. And then they have this really touching exchange. Haymitch says if it comes down to just them 2, he's on borrowed time anyway. Don't think twice about using those darts. Maisily challenges, you think I couldn't? Haymitch thinks about all the good things she's done since the reaping and says, I think you couldn't. For just a second, a look crosses her face. Young and vulnerable. Thanks for that. I don't think you could either. Aww, they trust each other! Then the Fallen Tribute recap plays, and they work together to keep track of who's gone and who's left. The losses of Day 4 are Panache, all 4 kids from District 2, all of District 3, Barba and Angler from 4, the remaining boy and girl from 5, Atreed from 6, a boy from 10, and Blossom from 11. There's 10 tributes left, with the only careers being Silka and Marit. In the darkness, Haymitch has a moment of derealization. Nothing feels real, and he thinks, possibly I have died by poisoning, in the tunnel, on Panache's sword, and I have moved on to one of Lenore Dove's worlds, where I continue to dream of life. Then Maisily starts talking and says that she's the one who killed Loop from 1 and managed to get a dart at Camilla from 2, but she may have ultimately died from the chemical lava. A sponsor gift appears, and it's that bean and ham hock soup that District 12 makes when people have died. Mags had ordered it for them after Luella died, so she seems to have picked this soup out for them again. Knowing Mags sent this brings Haymitch back to the present. Tears fill my eyes, forcing me to admit my presence in the only world I know, not an imaginary one. The one where I am in the Hunger Games for real. Intense. They eat together, and Haymitch builds a fire to fight off the cold. When Maisily sees that Haymitch's token is a flint striker, she's impressed, and she says that she'll take first watch. Before Haymitch can fall asleep, though, he feels he needs to say something more to thank Maisily for earlier. What do you say to the meanest girl in town who's become your friend? No, more than a friend, really. a newcomer, being tributes and not killing each other, looking out for each other with no questions asked. That's family, I guess. This next part gets me. He says, "You remember what Ampert said when you made his token?" There's a long pause before she says, "Sure, I'll be your sister." Shut up. Ampert had said he wished she was his sister, and she said, "I'll be your sister" to him too. And it was too much then, and it's too much now. Then Haymitch and Maisley squeeze each other's hands, and he says, "Night, sis." Haymitch has a bunch of awful nightmares. Classic. Then Maisley wakes him up, and he takes over the watch. He tends to the fire until morning and tries to distract himself from hunger by figuring out a plan to get through the hedge.